This is your Daily MoJo Extra.
Another former prisoner of the state, a political prisoner, a political hostage, if you will. Jessica Watkins joins us right now from an undisclosed location. Jessica, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing okay. I bet the sweet taste and sweet smell of freedom are doing okay for you, huh?
Oh yeah, can't complain, sir. Good to hear Billy Idol again.
Exactly. And don't ever call me sir. We can't be friends. It's just Brad.
It's habit, isn't it, Jessica?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't you worry about it at all.
So, Jessica was, how long were you in the D.C. Gulag, Jessica?
Well, I did 2.5 years in the DC Gulag. I left there August 14th of 2023. And then I went to the federal prisons, obviously.
You were with the Oath Keepers, a member of the Oath Keepers, correct?
Yes, sir. I was a medic for them.
On January 6th, you were at the Capitol, January 6th, 2021, and you ended up being sentenced to 8.5 years in federal prison for your behavior, for your actions on January 6th that day. Now, you are, let me see if I can quote this. I'm going to get the correct quote. My actions and my behaviors that fateful day were wrong, and as I now understand, criminal violence is never the answer. Do you think, were you violent that day? Were you you still think you were a criminal that day for being at the Capitol?
For being there, no. What I was referring to when I made that statement, that was in my sentencing, actually. There was a point where we were in a hallway, we were chanting slogans and so forth. It's not what I went there to do. I lost objectivity. I shouldn't have been getting swept up. I should have maintained my professional demeanor, I suppose, and instead of getting swept up in the hype of everything. So I realized now that the officers were trying to come down that hallway and respond to the Capitol situation, and we were in their way. And that's a violation of a civil disorder statute. I looked my jury dead in the face and I said, hey, look, I shouldn't have done this. Like, I shouldn't have been in this hallway. But I didn't behave violently there. You know, like, I understand that was I shouldn't have done that. But at the end of the day, like, I wasn't there to hurt anyone. I wasn't there to, I was there as a medic.
Why were you there? I mean, as a medic, but why did you decide to go to the Capitol on January 6th, other than, in your role as a medic, or was that it?
That was really it. So during the riots in 2020 is what drove me to join the Oath Keepers, to help them out with protecting businesses. We had a bunch of minority-owned businesses. Like there was this Vietnam couple that had come from Vietnam during the war. They were escaping the Gulf of Tonkin, and they were accosted by pirates and all sorts of things. So they came to America as immigrants. They started up a Chinese restaurant, and the Black Lives Matter crowd was trying to burn it down. And so they asked, hey, can you come protect our business? So like a bunch of me and the Oath Keepers, we went out there, and, I was the medic for them too. And so we went out there and protected this business. And, the BLM mob, they were like, threatening to burn his business down. They were threatening to burn down the gas station and all sorts of things. So that's what got me involved with the Oath Keepers, is just protective details. And we can interact with the crowd of BLM protesters and be like, hey, look, just maintain your, cool, behave peacefully, and we won't have a problem.
Jessica, were you a medic in the military? Is that how you got into doing that kind of work?
Actually, I was a paratrooper in the military. I was in 1st Battalion, 75th Rangers. No, I was a medic in the fire department. I was an EMT.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I did 4 years.
Ron, I wonder if Jessica knows Robin. Robin was a paratrooper as well, right, Ron?
Yes, I think so.
Special Forces.
Yeah.
Army.
Yeah.
We have a friend who was also a paratrooper. So you were a paratrooper in the service. When were you in the service?
That was 2001. I did 3 years, so it was 2001 through basically 2004 almost.
Good grief, that was 20. Does it seem like 20 years ago?
It does, actually.
Well, a lot of stuff has taken place in those 20 years, right?
A lot, yeah. I was actually in airborne school. I was in airborne school when the Twin Towers came down, actually, and which is what drove me to join the Rangers. We had a Ranger recruiter come out and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to war. Who wants in? We need Rangers now." And so I was like, "Yeah, sign me up. I'm in." And then about a little less than a year later, I was in Afghanistan fighting with them, and the deployments were shorter back then. But
and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what do you still believe the narrative on 9/11?
No.
I know.
That's as good as answer as any, I guess. I mean, nobody really does.
Well, that's the
I can't
thing
tell you
is
what
that
did happen, but I can tell you what I don't think happened. Like,
right. That's where I am. I think that's where Ron is, that we, over the past, now it's going on 10 years, I guess, so much has happened that's opened our eyes that I'm questioning everything that I've been told over the past 30 years. I don't know what to believe anymore. It's a sad state of affairs when you cannot believe your own government. Would you agree?
I completely agree. Like, our government is there to protect us. We need to believe it. We need to have faith in it, and I think that's what January 6th is shaking a lot of the faith in too. They're like, is this another 9/11 type situation?
Right. So, all right. So back on January 6th, when you go to the Capitol, you were there with the Oath Keepers as a medic. Did you arrive with them as a group, or did you meet up with them there? How kind of describe that day?
Sure. We actually had a contract. We provide security for VIPs. So we had Roger Stone, Ali Alexander, a bunch of podcasters, YouTube personalities. We had congressmen who we were going to be escorting from the ellipse at the president's speech to the Capitol. We had a permit for Area 8 on the Capitol grounds. There was a stage built, sound equipment. Like, we had the lineup. There was brochures that were being distributed online. So it was like a well-organized thing. Capitol Police signed off on it. We had the First Amendment permit to be there. And then so the Oath Keepers were to escort the congressmen and the VIPs from the ellipse to the Capitol to give those speeches. And so we did that. We were in one of the front rows when the president spoke at the ellipse, that famous speech he gave. And things got kind of a little wonky, so we didn't end up escorting the congressmen like we thought we were going to. I suspect that's probably because the riot was already ongoing and we had no idea about it. But at the time, we were like, okay, well, they're not coming, so we'll take what VIPs and we've got, and we'll escort them to the Capitol. So we did that on camera, and we got there. I had a radio app I was using, and I was talking about, we're just, we're sticking together, we're sticking to the plan, and they used that against me in like every indictment and the January 6th Select Committee. Everywhere you heard this thing, we're sticking to the plan, but the plan was just to escort our people to give their speeches. It had nothing to do with what was going on January 6th. We had no idea that was going to happen. And so we got there and we dropped off our people, and then we're like, okay, well, I guess that's it. Like, this is happening, so let's go check it out. And we didn't breach any barricades. Everything, people are already in the building before we even got there, and we didn't know any of that. And so we walked right up the front stairs. There's a famous video of all of us Oath Keepers walking single file up the stairs, and they cut it right there. They don't like to show you the full video where we turn around and we're smoking cigarettes and we're singing the national anthem. And, they don't like to show you that part. They just show the video of us going up the stairs, and they're like, look at this dangerous, scary breach. And that's not what it was.
Right. Did they open the door for you?
Well, when we went up there, the doors were already open, or at least,
okay,
as far as I could see. So, we went in and we just followed everyone. It was like a Black Friday moment, is what I called it in trial.
Well, so you walk in this door. Had you been stopped? Had your progress been impeded in any way during your walk to the Capitol? Was there any police resistance to what you were doing? Anything like that?
Nothing. In fact, when we first got on Capitol grounds, there was a little line of like riot police there, and they were just standing there with their little sticks, just in their gear. Just they looked bored, and so we're like, "Hey, look, they brought riot police. Why? Like, what's the point?" Like, but anyway, that was the only cops I saw. When we went through the door, there was no officers anywhere we could see, and it was just the doors opened up and everybody just went in, and so it was like, "Oh shit, let's go check it out, guys."
And so you go in, and it's again, you're surprised because you see the riot police. Was there any indication at that point? Had you seen any violent behavior? Had you? It's my understanding anyway, because I've spoken with Nick Searcy about this before, who was he was also there. That on one side of the Capitol, it was almost like a tourist event, just very calm, quiet. People milling around. On the other side, there was, there were some clashes, some violent clashes. Was where you were, what was the general feeling in that area of the Capitol?
So everything that's famous from the videos that you see are all on the West Terrace, the lower West Terrace. I was on the East Steps. There was no violence of any kind there by the time we got there. There was a point where people were being pepper spraying police officers up on top of those stairs. That was a good 10, 15 minutes before we got there. So we didn't witness that. So we didn't see that, but that lasted for less than a minute. So, but other than that, there was really no violence up there. There was one person who had smashed out Capitol windows. They actually charged the Oath Keepers with that. But it happened 30 minutes before we got there.
Hey, Jessica. Go ahead, Brad. Sorry. Ron. I was just going to ask, you were there with both Stuart Rhodes and Kelly Meggs, correct?
No, Stuart, I had no idea. Stuart was even in the D.C. area. I knew he was there the night before, but I had no idea he was there that day.
Yet he got convicted of being there.
Yeah, ultimately he showed up after I left. He showed up at 4 o'clock or something, wicked late. He took a little selfie video, and I guess Kelly Meggs, in our trial, they were talking about this. Kelly Meggs had come out and said, yeah, we went inside, we rescued this cop. And Stuart looked up from his phone and said, you went inside? That was stupid.
But I remember the discussion about Stuart Rhodes in that he wasn't even on site, but because there were communications back and forth with him is why he ended up getting drug into all of this, right? As the leader of the
sort of. I mean, even communications is a little weak. So a lot of this stuff they were showing, they were like, he posted this video and he said this crazy statement, but none of us were on those chats. Or if we were, it wasn't until months later. So you can't, how are you holding me responsible for this? But because conspiracy law is super vague, they manipulated everything to make it look like there was some overarching scheme. But yeah, there was
what did they charge you with? What was the charge against you?
So initially they had charged me with just obstruction, destruction of government property, conspiracy, and civil disorder. But then after the January 6th Select Committee started doing their thing, they ended up charging us also with seditious conspiracy.
Which is what is seditious conspiracy? Do you?
So
I'm
actually,
sure that you've looked it up and you probably know it inside out by now.
So a true seditious conspiracy is something like what happened in the Chaz Chop situation with Antifa. The Seditious Conspiracy Act is to declare war on the United States government. It is to unlawfully seize property or territory within the United States and then use force to deny access. It is also to overthrow the United States government. And then the part they charge us with was use any force against the government. So the last clause is very, very vague. And we didn't do the first three because we obeyed the curfew order. They couldn't get us on holding any kind of property. And obviously we didn't declare war on the government or try to overthrow the government. So they got us on use force, which was very vague. I ended up being found not guilty on that. In fact, most of the Oath Keepers in my trial were not. It was just Kelly Meggs and Stuart Rhodes that were found guilty of that. And I don't even know what the pretext is for that. Like what they.
What'd you have with you that day? As a medic, were you carrying like a med kit? What'd you have?
Absolutely, yeah. So I had my body armor. So like we go to protest in Antifa, they'll throw bottles and rocks. They'll stab you. They'll shoot you. So Antifa is very dangerous. So I had my protective vest, and in my vest, where I usually keep magazines for my weapon, I had it just stuffed with bandages and tourniquets and King Airway, things like that. So yeah,
stuff that a normal person, if asked, medical stuff, just the usual stuff that you would carry to take care of somebody if they had been injured. Okay, and again,
I was very clearly marked.
I
had red crosses all over me, and I had med on the back of my helmet. I was very clearly marked as a medic.
Okay, and as you said, because you knew, did you know Antifa was there? Did you know that these other groups were present?
We had heard rumors, so we had circulated in our chat. Antifa said they were going to come dressed like Trump supporters. They were going to wear baseball hats, or Trump hats, MAGA hats backwards, and wear camouflage shorts. And that was kind of like their uniform, I guess. But
and they did do that, right?
They did do that. In fact, that pepper spray attack, everybody who pulled it out, they had like a whistle, and they blew a whistle, and everybody with these hats turned backwards all pulled the same brand of mace out and started spraying the cops with it. And like, it was like an instant thing. And they were all wearing hats backwards, camouflage shorts. And one person had one of those Guy Fawkes, like V for Vendetta masks. You know what I'm talking about? Like, he was in on it. And I'm like, this guy is clearly Antifa. Like, no Trump supporter shows up dressed like that.
No, exactly. And so that was in the, did you see texts that had that? Did you see that? That sort of communicate. So so that's amazing. Cause of course this is the first time I'm hearing that. I've never seen that reported, in the press because, well, we all know why, because they were trying to dress this up as, to go with the narrative. So you're there, you're as a medic, you are aware that there are these other groups that are probably going to be causing some problems. So you've worn protective gear. You go into the Capitol at that point. So you're in there, and at what point do you see things going south?
So one of the protesters, one of the first things I did in there is I just started checking out paintings and talking to people. And somebody said they had thrown some flashbangs and shot people with pepper balls. I was like, okay, that's crazy. And then I walked down a hallway briefly, and somebody was breaking glass. And I made them stop. I screamed out. I'm like, hey, if you're going to F this place up, I'm going to F you up. Stop, and they took off and they run. They bolted. And then I was like, okay, cool. And I walked back in the rotunda, and then I heard 3 bangs. It sounded like flashbangs or something. And so that's when I kind of realized, like, oh man, like stuff is kind of going down. But everything was peaceful. Everybody kind of cheered after those bangs went off. Everybody was just like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
Right.
And then Jessica, so when we walked down the hallway, everything was like peaceful and happy up until that point. Everybody was waving flags and hugging and singing glory, glory, hallelujah. And then we went down this hallway, and everybody, like, the tone had shifted. So people were chanting, F McConnell and all this stuff like that. And that's when I kind of got swept up in the protest. I do believe the 2020 election was rigged. So, like, I kind of got swept up in the hype of that.
And the excitement of that. But were you there? Did all of this take place before Ashley Babbitt was shot? And were you even around any area where that happened?
I was in the rotunda when she was shot. So that happened at 2:43. She was shot, and I was in the rotunda at the time.
How close in relation to where she was were you?
Far enough.
So you completely
like,
different.
She was
area.
down on the house side, and I don't know how far deep. I never went that way, so I don't know how far deep that goes.
Okay,
gotcha.
All right. We have to do an odd thing here on the program, and then I want to talk to you because we haven't obviously touched on the what I want to get to concerning your incarceration. But we have to what we call here on the Daily Mojo, we have to create the whole for our commercials. So we're going to do that, and when we come back, we're going to talk again with Jessica Watkins, who was a January 6th hostage And I think Jessica is going to be amazed at how small this hole really is here. Because you will. I mean, just watch this. You'll be amazed.
Where political correctness comes to die. The Daily Mojo.
And indeed, we are back.
Yeah, that's how short it was.
It's a little behind the scenes baseball. Just a real quick check in with the people over on the Rumble. Missy13 says the FBI were the ones who arranged this. Not My Dog says the night before, YouTubers were warning on the hat backwards thing. They were told by local police. Let's see here. Dark may do. Patriot Act is nothing but and should be repealed, because that's what we were. You know, people that love the country, that people like you, Jessica, who went into the service after 9/11, and back in that time frame, we were all patriots. We wanted the Patriot Act. Yeah, that's great because, you know, we all believe W. And, you know, we're going to be able to, spy on people, the bad guys. We didn't realize that they were effing us all, and they were going to turn all of this around on us. And that's exactly what happened with the Patriot Act. We've been the frogs in the water that's been warming up slowly for the past 20 years now. I think we're probably really close to that full boil. So again, you were at the Capitol on January 6th. Let me ask you about the broken windows, the iconic breaking of the windows. There was the one guy with a 2x4 smashing them in. Did you see him?
No, all that was on the West Terrace, so I didn't see that.
Okay. All right. But there were more than that, just that set of windows being broken?
This was a window inside the Capitol building.
Okay.
Now, for start seeing office window or something.
So for reference, Jessica, the West Terrace is the terrace that the inaugurations are held on, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and they had built the inaugural stage and everything out there.
Yeah. So that's the one that faces the reflecting pool in the mall.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Just so everybody's got the same.
And that's where the Capitol Police were lobbing the flashbangs and I guess the gas grenades too, but they were launching them into the crowd to drive that crowd, partially at least, back toward the building, back toward the Capitol, right?
So I've watched a lot of the Capitol footage from over there. Part of our discovery was to look at all that. And the wind was blowing directly in their faces, so they kept chucking tear gas grenades for no reason. Like they had them. They're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna use this thing, and you can hear them on their body cameras, just like laughing and bragging about it. So they would throw it, but then none of them had gas masks. So as soon as they throw it, like you could see, like the wind would just blow it right back in their faces. And then that's what made the police line collapse. Was the cops tear gassed themselves. Like ultimately, one of the sergeants threw a tear gas grenade against orders. Like the incident commander his last name was Glover, and he said, "What is that? A triple chaser? Don't throw that." And like he was like, "Okay." And 60 seconds later, he threw it anyway, and that's what ultimately made the police line collapse over there. So as soon as that happened, the police fell back, and everybody's kind of walked right up to the building.
You know, Jessica, we interviewed Jeff McKellop a week or two ago, and he was on the West Side, and his big statement was there was no planning. They didn't, and this is the D.C. cops in the metro, they had no planning. They didn't know what they were doing. They were running around like chickens with their head cut off, and they were pepper spraying themselves. And so it just created this complete havoc over there, which caused a lot of the problems that we saw on that day.
100%, yeah. And if you look at like the videos, you can see like the flags are like fully stretched out, like the wind is blowing really, really hard. So as soon as they'd fire that stuff, it came right back on them.
All right. So at the day goes on. Were you arrested that day? When did what happened for the remainder of that day?
No, after the hallway, the cops pepper sprayed everyone, and we ran. As soon as the cops fired the pepper spray, we were out of there. So I ran back in the rotunda, and I started grabbing people who were injured in that, and I dragged a man out of the Capitol building, one of my co-defendants actually, and then I we set up a triage outside the Capitol with some riot police right there. So we started treating patients. Immediately jumped in. People started bringing us stuff, and they said medic, medic. One guy was passing out, so I threw him on my shoulders and I dragged him over to some ambulances to get him some help, and all on camera. And then we left. And then on the way out of the area, some Metropolitan Police stopped us and they said, "Hey, why are you dressed this way?" And so we showed them our credentials and everything, and they asked us, like if we have any weapons. We let them do a pat down of us, and they checked us out and they said, "Oh, no, you're good. Thank you for your information." And I gave them a little fist bump and I said, "God bless you. Thank you for everything you do." And then we went back towards our vehicle. For whatever reason, Capitol Police funneled all the Trump supporters into Black Lives Matter Plaza, which was really bizarre. And so there was an altercation there where a Trump supporter was walking, and a bunch of BLM people ran out and just started punching him. And so me and my co-defendants, we rushed and we protected the guy and said, "Hey, get out of here. Stop doing this." And so they ran. And so we helped that guy and we went back to our vehicles, and that was it. I didn't get arrested till 11 days later.
How'd that happen? So you're at home, you've been probably watching the news, right?
Well, at first I was freaked out because as soon as I got back to my hotel, I was like, "We did it, guys. We stood up for America." And so I turned on the news and I'm like, "Ooh, this is not good." And so then I don't know, I was a little freaked out on the next day, but when they started releasing who they were going after, they were going for people who attacked police and committed vandalism. I'm like, "Hey, that's not us. We don't have anything to worry about." Kelly Meggs rescued a police officer. Him, Kenny Harrelson, Joseph Hackett, Connie Meggs. They rescued Officer Harry Dunn. So they were like, "Yeah, well, we rescued a cop, so we're good." And I was like, "Yeah, I was stopping vandalism and helping hurt people." So they were like, "Just relax. Everything's fine. We don't have to worry about this." But I was online talking about it. I was on social media telling people what we did,
right,
trying to set the record straight. But that ended up being my undoing because the sedition hunters immediately turned me in.
So the day that did they come to you? Did they call you? Did they say, "Hey, can you come in for a chat"? What? How did your apprehension occur?
So the media showed up first. There was a huge media thing where they were just beating down the doors of every neighbor, and they were harassing my mom, and they were just harassing everyone. So one of my co-defendants was like, "Hey, you can come stay with us." So we went out there, and I said, "Okay." I left all my equipment, all my guns, everything, my phone with all the passwords and everything. I said, "Okay, if law enforcement comes and they want anything, just give them this stuff. Tell them I'll be back, and I'll turn myself in or whatever." And so I went, and I was gone for like 4 days. And eventually the media slowed down, but then the raid happened, and the FBI sent a joint terrorism task force to my home. I wasn't there, so obviously they didn't get who they were looking for, but they threw flashbangs and everything. They shut out the windows of my house and everything. Like, they drones and threw flashbang at my dog. Like, she's a little 8-pound Yorkie, and she was in her cage, threw a flashbang at her. And then when I found out about it, I was in Virginia at the time, and this was all happening in Ohio. So I came back. I was like an 8-10 hour drive, came back to Ohio and turned myself in. And I was locked up ever since that day.
So you turn yourself in. They immediately, so you turned yourself in Ohio, at a
Correct.
federal building in Ohio?
No, I went to a sheriff's department initially, and nobody was there. And then I went to the Urbana Police Department, which is Urbana in Champaign, Ohio. And so I turned myself in there, and I said, "Hey, listen, this raid just happened." They're like, "Okay." And I said, "I'm just here to turn myself in. Clearly the feds want me." And so she looked me up. She said, "Well, I don't see anything in our system. You can go." And I was like, "I don't think you understand. They shut out the windows of my house and stuff. They showed up with tanks and rifles. They want me. Like, I'm here. Just." And so she ended up calling the FBI field office, and they said, "Okay, yeah, hold her. We're coming." And
did the cop's demeanor change after she spoke with the FBI or whoever? Did she say, "All right"? Did she put you in handcuffs? What happened?
No, she was really cool. Like, we just sat there and talked, and She was really nice, very
And
professional.
then
No,
the
no
FBI.
problem.
Okay, then the FBI shows up that same day.
Yep, it was probably 2
How are
hours
they?
later.
How are they to deal
Cold.
with?
That was the first time I was ever handcuffed. They were cold. They're like, "Hey, we want you to give us a statement." I said, "I don't have an attorney or anything. I don't think that's a good idea. I'll talk to you when I get an attorney." Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, "Okay." And so then they handcuffed me and they separated me from my co-defendant. We both turned ourselves in at the same time. And yeah, and then they booked us. They booked us in Montgomery County Jail in Dayton, Ohio.
How long before you ended up in the DC gulag?
So they extradited me. They sent me from Montgomery to Butler County. Butler County, I was pretty badly mistreated. I had a broken arm on January 6th. I had broken arm and broken ribs, and they threw me in this room with no bed, no nothing. It was literally just a concrete box with a toilet. And they left me in there. I had an arm brace. They took all of that away, and so I had nothing. So I curled up on the floor on this like tray, and I was in agony because I have broken arm, broken ribs. And so I told them, "Hey, listen, if you don't fix my arm, I'm going to go on a hunger strike till you fix my arm." And so then they stripped me naked, and they threw me in this like glass booth in the intake lobby, and I was in there for 4 days with the lights on 24/7. Just 4 days just crying naked in this cell. And people walking by and staring at me, because this is right where they bring every prisoner in and book them into the jail. And I'm like in this glass booth there, and I just kind of curled under this little mat that they give you, and I just curled up under that and then they kept coming in. Why were you at January 6th? Who were you with? And then I was just like, I don't know, man. Like I was just there to help people. And
all right, this is probably a good time to bring in that you are a transgender female.
correct.
So, and as soon as you said they stripped me naked, were they aware of that? Did they say anything about that? Did you have to say something to them? Well, let me ask you that. How long have you been transgender?
I transitioned 22 years ago.
22 years.
So,
Okay. So all right. It's been a while. Been a hot minute.
It's been a while. Yeah. I changed my name legally in 2005, and I had surgery in 2007.
Okay. So they strip you naked. So you're naked the whole time that you're in this cell?
Those 4 days, yes.
That does not seem like SOP. I mean, did they do that to everybody?
They said I was on suicide watch because I said I was going to go on hunger strike. And I literally they give us baby carrots. So I was literally chewing up baby carrots into little pieces and writing, "I'm not suicidal" on the floor for the camera, because there was a camera up there. And then the sheriffs would come in, they'd kick the carrots, and I'd just go back and I'd rewrite it on the floor, said, "I'm not suicidal." And every time they come in, I'm like, "Dude, I'm not suicidal. I don't want to die. I want to go get this over with, because I didn't even do anything, I'm not going to be in prison forever, this is stupid." I honestly, at that point, I thought, as soon as they pull the cameras and as soon as they see the footage of what it is that I did, they're not going to do anything to me.
At this point, do you have to take medications or hormones or anything like that on a daily basis? Not to get too personal, but I mean, all right. So at this point,
I'll be on those
you
for
didn't
life,
expect. Okay, you didn't expect to be. Obviously, when you were taken into custody, you didn't think that you were staying in jail for what ended up being how long?
4 years, 3 days.
All right. So when you went in, you did not think that you were going to jail for 4 years and 3 days. So you weren't really, and correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't bring along a 4-year supply of anything that you would need. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, you can't really take anything with you anyway. But no, when I kissed my husband before I left, I said, "Hey, I'll see you in a few weeks." I literally thought this was going to be over in a few weeks.
Did they give you your medication, Jessica? That's, I guess, the question.
No.
Yeah.
It took them a very long time for that to happen. It wasn't until I got to the DC jail. And the DC jail gave me a hard time about it. They actually booked me in the men's side. with the other January 6th, the guys. And
Wow.
I had to fight to get on it. And Judge Maida, my judge, actually had to get involved and help me with. And as soon as my judge heard about it, I have a very liberal judge, so that was something he was very helpful with. So eventually, I did get back on my medication.
You confused the hell out of them, didn't you? Because you're there, you're supporting. I mean, you're trying to you're be a patriot and you're transgender, and those two things didn't necessarily go together for them.
Well,
so you had them all
right.
effed up in the head.
Well, I don't do identity
Good for you.
politics. Like, I don't really discuss that sort of thing. My in-laws, my customers at the bar, my friends, everybody found out I was trans from CNN. After my arrest, they made a big deal about it.
Which is ludicrous.
Did you? Well, yeah. Did you? I mean, so did they? You said they put you in the men's side. Did you have to say something when they arrested you? Did you have to tell?
I did.
Say, look, I'm transgender. You did.
I did. In fact, that's what initially when I got booked in the Montgomery County Jail, I was booked with the women, and then I told them hey, here's the situation, and so then they moved me.
Why? Just out of curiosity, why did you tell them? Why did you say because you needed medication or
that? And the intake, when they started doing the intake, the psychiatrist was talking to me, psychologist, whatever. And
Okay.
they one of the questions they ask you is, are you a veteran? I said, yeah. They're like, okay, what branch do you serve? I went and gave them kind of my history, and they're like, okay, what was your job? I said, well, I was infantry. I was, a soldier. And they're like, did you see combat? I said, yes. In Afghanistan. He's like, that's really unusual. And so I had to explain to him, well, I've had a switch.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. I'm with you. All right. So once you're in the, they put you in the, in the women's. Let's see. They first put you in the women's, then they switch you to the men's. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Were you there in the men's jail for the rest of the time? How did that all shake down?
No, I kept fighting it. I said, listen, I don't belong here. So they sent me for so Muriel Bowser, she's the mayor of DC. Muriel Bowser has a transgender executive council or whatever, where they determine where they're going to house you. And so I said, no, I love the guys. I love the J6 guys, but I made this switch. I need to go where I belong. And so they're like, well, we don't think we need to be mixing insurrectionists with the women and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not an insurrectionist. You can't make that decision. At this point I hadn't even been to trial, so I'm innocent until proven guilty anyway. But
except all the Jan 6ers, Jessica, except all the Jan 6ers were guilty. Just stupid.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
This used to be America. All right. So so say that again. They couldn't. What she said. They couldn't put insurrectionists in with the women. Is that what you said? She said.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
But I kept fighting it,
anyway.
and then I get over there. I got on the women's side, and there was two J6 women and trans women. They just selectively chose me and said, "No, screw you."
God.
You're going
wow,
here.
You really messed them up there. They're like, wait a second, you guys should not be here. This is not the way this whole story goes. So once you're in there, you ended up long term. You were in which side, men's or women's?
So I was there on the men's side until April or May of 2022. So about a year and a half. Well, closer to a year and a half with the men, and then I moved over to the women's side.
Jessica, how was that? How were you treated?
Yeah. How were you treated there?
When I moved to women's Gen Pop, I was treated really honestly pretty well. There was a couple inmates that gave me problems. One girl just kept spitting on me. She was spitting on the other J6 girl too.
I'd have whooped her ass right off the bat.
Well,
just using tools that you knew you already had, I'd have whooped her ass right off the bat.
Well, that's what they say you do when you get to prison. You find the biggest, baddest, man or woman, and you beat the shit out of them, and then from then on, they respect you. So how did you respond to that, to the spitting?
I wrote it up. I reported it, and they dealt with it. Yeah.
You're
So
a much better
I don't
person
know.
than
Like
I am.
I'm not the kind of person. I'm not very confrontational like that. I'm just gonna go punch you in the face for it. I'm just gonna report it. Like, you know, and none of
Right.
all the girls were like, yeah, that's, you know, messed up. So they didn't even care. You're like, you can't snitch in prison, right? You're not allowed to snitch, but something like that, they're like, no, you got to get tested. You got to report that because you don't know what this girl's got.
Yeah.
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 Oh, right.
And she was like a
Was
prostitute
she
back, and so like you don't know what. Yeah, I had to go get tested.
was she like Big Bertha? Was she like looking mean, or was she, you know, petite little flower? I mean,
Yeah, she was
was she
not
scary
a.
looking?
Yeah,
She's
like one eye
kind
going
of
this
scary
way, one
looking,
eye
right?
going this way. Kind of. Yeah.
We know a few of those.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Jessica, how were you treated on the men's side for the year and a half you were over there?
I mean, they treated me with complete and total respect. I mean,
Good.
the guards and stuff would use the wrong pronouns, but like all the J6 guys would be like, "Hey, stop, leave her alone." You know, like they like
Good.
the J6 guys were amazing. That's where I met Jeff McKellop and
Yeah.
you know Guy Reffitt and a bunch of them. So
Good.
yeah, I love the guys to death.
And that's what Jeff was saying, is that they were the guards were racist toward him, that they were,
they were
disrespectful.
very
So were they racist toward you? Was it just hateful transgender slurs? What did they say?
all
to
of
you?
that, all of that. I mean, they would. I don't know what all I can say on this program, but they would.
Whatever
they
you
had
want.
slurs. They had racial. Yeah, I mean, they call honkies, crackers, Trump mother effers. You know, and then they'd single me out. They'd throw me in a holding facility, and they'd be like, you know, Jessica's a man. Like I'm like, what is this relevant to anything? Why would you say something like that? Like, just being cruel, like calling me out in front of like a whole bunch of like non J6 inmates. You know, like why is that relevant
What
to any discussion? Like, why are you just trying to humiliate me?
did
And
that make you
so,
mad? Were you scared? How'd you feel?
honestly, like I don't know. I just cried a lot. Really, if I'm going to be honest with you, I like it was very emotional. Like it was very emotionally. I mean, I already because I've been through so much in my life. You know, I struggle with depression and anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
things. You know, I've got a lot of
Um,
PTSD. So I don't
mhm.
know. I just
De-
it
Depression
broke me.
sucks, does
Like
it not?
honestly, yeah,
Depression is awful. It's
Yeah.
I'm with you, and it's unexplainable to people that don't have it. There's no way to explain it to them, and it doesn't matter who or what you are. It's a horrible, because it's like your brain is you're fighting with your own brain.
Yeah.
And it's
right.
awful.
Now,
Well,
Jessica,
especially once I got charged with seditious conspiracy too. The seditious, like I cried until like my eyes were like blood. Like
Mhm.
I cried so hard, and then they were like, "It's okay, you're gonna be fine." You're like, I was like, "You don't understand. They're calling me a traitor. Like I love my country, and like all these people are just coming after me."
That would have pissed me off too.
Oh, yeah.
I hate
Oh,
being
yeah.
accused of
And
something I
that's-
didn't do.
on the outside, that's what we were being told, of course. And then we all started doing our research and we're like, no, that's not what happened at all. You know, it took us a little while before we all started ramping up and going, no, hell no, that's not what was happening. I mean, people like David Summerall writing the American Gulag, well, or I can't remember who wrote the American Gulag Chronicles. What was that guy's name? I can't remember, but
Tim Rivers, maybe.
Tim Rivers, thank you. And all of these people were coming out. Of course, Don and Don over at Cowboy Logic were interviewing everybody, and we're getting the real story, right? And we're all going, wait a minute. And we're all finding out, this is the thing that pissed me and Brad off the most, is that they were not allowing things as part of the trials that we knew would have shown your innocence in what you were doing at certain aspects of things. The majority
100%.
of people, right? The majority of people. We do know that there were people committing violence there. We know that for a fact. But there were, I mean, showing videos of certain J6ers helping cops, but yet not playing the audio, so it looked like they weren't necessarily helping the cops, and keeping that stuff out. Now, you made a comment in your trial about Judge Mehta being and I don't remember the exact quote, but a decent arbiter for your particular case. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I believe that at first.
Before you do, Jessica, hold that thought, because Ron, I have to make a small hole here.
Gotcha.
No pun
Sorry.
intended.
Yep.
And we'll hear from Jessica on the other side of this.
The Daily Mojo.
We do things a little differently here at the Daily Mojo. It's not for everybody either.
That's correct.
But we're talking with Jessica Watkins, who was a J6 hostage at the D.C. Gulag for 4 years and 3 days or 8 days?
3.
4 years, 3.
days. 4 years and 3. As Chuck Woolery once said, 4 and 3. All right. So you were before we
about to talk about Judge Mehta. Yeah.
Go ahead and explain.
So I did believe at first. I defended Judge Mehta for years because at first it seemed like he was willing to hear the defense arguments. I think once it became clear that we were going to put up a fight at trial, that changed. So I don't know. I defended him because he is a very kind person. He comes off as very gentle, very kind, very compassionate. And he did help me with my hormone situation, getting back on my medication. He also at sentencing wanted to make sure. Go ahead.
How long did they withhold that from you?
It took probably 3-4 months.
Wow.
That's again, it's reprehensible, and compound that with the fact that you were in there on what I would consider a bogus charge to begin with. That's what makes it even worse. And it was manufactured.
Yeah, the one crime I can honestly say that I can be responsible for is the civil disorder charge. But I mean, I've seen the transurrection, and you got Cop City in Georgia. You got all these situations where Antifa, they obstruct officers all the time. They get no charges. They certainly don't get a joint terrorism SWAT raid. It should have been a ticket or 90 days in jail or something, not like sedition.
And you ended up getting a commutation, correct? You didn't get a pardon, you got a commutation?
Correct.
And do you are you good with that?
No, I'm still hoping for a pardon. I think I'm certain that President Trump's legal teams got a strategy. They're going to be going through a lot of the cases.
There were at least 14 of you that got commuted, and they said we're going to be looking at these cases.
Right. And I still feel very much that they're going to be doing that. Like, I trust President Trump. I know he knows what he's doing. So.
All right. Just a couple more questions, and thank you for taking this long to speak with us. Because
sure.
Do you have when you're recounting your stories like this? Does it? It's got to be taxing on you emotionally. Would you rather just forget about the whole thing, or do you feel like you need to tell as many people as possible what happened?
I need to tell as many people as possible. And because I'm very passionate about BOP reform, the way that the inmates are Americans, right? They may have committed a crime. A lot of them have been badly mistreated by the system. A lot of people have been railroaded. One of the people I know went to prison for plywood, and she was facing 4 years for plywood. What does
that mean?
What does that mean for plywood?
She was importing plywood somehow, and somehow she violated some import law. She wasn't aware of it, but whatever law it was, they manipulated it and they wanted to make an example out of her. So, instances like that are terrible, and the way the conditions are awful in there. And so, as much as I'd love to put all this behind me, I've got a lot of work ahead of me.
Is that? It sounds to me like you're going to take that on as a mission. Is that correct?
100%. 100%. I after seeing what I've seen and experiencing what I've experienced, I can't turn my back on it.
I can only imagine. When you were in there, were you aware? How much media did you get to see while you were in the prison?
None.
So you had no
I
idea
did
whether
an
people were
interview
on
with
your
Don and
side
Donna.
or.
Yeah, I did an interview with Don and Donna when I was in the DC Gulag. Once I went to prison, I cut off all media connections. I was talking with Steve Baker, cut off talking with him because he got indicted for January 6th.
Right.
So I stopped talking to people in the BOP because it's against policy. I didn't want to get thrown in the hole.
Wow. So you were in the blind. You had no idea whether people were whether public sentiment was with you or against you or what the hell was going on out here.
Well, I listen to Glenn Beck every day and Mark Levin and Clay and Buck. I had a radio station, WFLA. I listened to every day.
Okay.
So I was kind of plugged in.
So you had some. Oh, good. All right, good. Because we were on your side out here. We were. And one of the things that Ron and I would especially talk about is the fact that, if we were ever in jail, especially wrongly, we would want to think that there were people on the outside who would at least be trying to figure out what the hell we were, how we were being treated and how they could get us out. So we're just glad that you are out and that you have shared your story. Anytime you need an outlet, the door is wide open here.
We are here.
Yeah, we will. If you just want to shoot the shit, feel free to join us here. We're glad to do that.
It. I'm actually very passionate about the trans issue as well. The whole agenda, the trans agenda, is just crazy to me. I'm against all the grooming in the schools, and I'm very much for protecting women's and girls' sports. So a lot of what the conservative movement is doing in the trans agenda is positive. So,
right.
I know that's going to take a lot of heat. As soon as I say that, the media is going to pounce on it and say she's anti-trans and look at all she's been through. And I'm not. I'm very pro-trans.
It'll be the liberal media.
I like trans people. I don't like trans agenda. So.
Right. And like we always say here, I would never F with especially a trans woman, because if you're willing to have things cut off, you are willing to go take it to the mat. And like you, I have respect. And you know what? If you're 18, you do whatever the hell you want. We don't care. We do not care what a grown human does. That's up to you. But we want your rights protected, your human rights, just like anybody else. So again, you're welcome here anytime, Jessica.
This is your Daily Mojo Extra.